At 22, Clara Whitfield had $43, a canvas duffel bag with a broken zipper, and a truck that burned oil every 100 miles. No apartment, no family she could call. The eviction notice had been taped to her door on a Tuesday, and by Friday she was sitting in a county clerk's office in Harlan Springs, signing her name on a tax lien deed for a collapsed schoolhouse she'd never seen. The clerk had looked at her like she was signing away her last chance at sense. She paid $9. The building had been abandoned for 31 years, but when she pried open the cellar hatch with a pry bar, she found rusted into the bed of her truck. She found something her great-aunt Eleanor had spent 2 decades quietly building, something a lawyer named Raymond Goss had spent just as long making sure she would never find. 3 weeks earlier, Clara had been standing in a fluorescent-lit conference room in a legal aid office in Millerton, watching a paralegal with bitten nails slide a manila folder across a folding table. The paralegal's name was Janet Krill. She had a mole on her left earlobe and she tapped it whenever she was about to say something she didn't want to say. She tapped it. "Your landlord filed on the 18th, Janet said. "You're 8 days past answer." Clara nodded. She had her hands flat on the table. Her palms were damp. "How much do you have?" Janet asked. $43. Janet tapped the mole again. "In savings?" "Total." Janet closed the folder. She didn't open it again. She looked at Clara for a long time, then she pulled a photocopy from a drawer and set it in front of her. It was a notice of estate settlement from 4 years prior. Eleanor Macklin, deceased. No surviving spouse. No children. One niece, Clara Whitfield, last known address in Millerton. "This came through our intake last month," Janet said. "Someone requested a search on your name. I don't know who. It got kicked to me because I was handling your eviction response." Clara stared at the paper. She hadn't seen her great-aunt Eleanor in 15 years. Eleanor had lived somewhere south, maybe 2 states over, maybe 3. Clara's mother had stopped speaking to that side of the family before Clara turned 10. She didn't know why. "She left something?" Clara asked. "Maybe," Janet said. "The estate was settled by a lawyer named Raymond Goss, Cumberland County. I called his office. He said the estate was closed and distributed according to the will. No assets remained." "Then why show me this?" Janet tapped her earlobe. "Because the file shows a property. A schoolhouse on County Road 4 in Harlan Springs. The deed transferred to the county in a tax sale 6 months ago. Goss didn't list it in the estate. He told the court it had been demolished." "Was it?" "No," Janet said. "I pulled the county tax roll this morning. It sold last week for $9. Nobody bought it. It's still available." Clara looked at the photocopy. Eleanor's name in faded type. A case number. A date of death she hadn't known about. "Why would he lie?" Clara asked. Janet shrugged. "I don't know. But if you've got $9 and no place to go, you could buy it and find out." Clara left the office with the photocopy, a referral card for a food bank, and a blue ink pen Janet had let her keep. She sat in her truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes. The engine was off. It was April, and the air still had a bite. She counted her money twice. She had enough gas to make it south if she didn't eat and didn't stop. She drove. The highway was 2-lane blacktop that turned to gravel after the state line. The gravel turned to dirt past a grain depot with its windows soaped over. The dirt road bent through pine and scrub oak, and the sky went colorless. She passed a shuttered gas station, a church with a caved roof, a rusted water tower that said Harland in letters half missing. The town itself was 5 buildings and a post office. The county clerk's office was in the back of the post office. A woman named Mary Stanek sat behind a desk with a rotary phone and a coffee mug that said, "World's Best Mom." She had bifocals on a beaded chain. She didn't smile. "I'm here about a property," Clara said. "County Road 4, the schoolhouse." Mary pulled a binder from a metal shelf and opened it without looking up. "You want to buy it?" Yes. You know what you're buying? No. Mary turned the binder around. There was a photocopied plat map and a handwritten note clipped to the page. The note said, "Structure unsound. No utilities. Sell as is." $9, Mary said. Cash only, no refunds. You'll need to sign a waiver that says you won't sue the county if it falls on you. Clara set 2 5s on the desk. Mary made change and pulled a carbon copy form from a drawer. Clara signed 3 times. Mary stamped the deed with a rubber stamp that said paid and handed it to her in a plastic sleeve. "It's 4 miles east," Mary said. "You'll see the bell tower if it hasn't come down yet." Clara folded the deed and put it in her jacket pocket. She found the schoolhouse an hour before dark. It sat 30 yards off the road, behind a low stone wall that had collapsed in 2 places. The bell tower was still standing, but the roof had buckled and the windows were gone. The siding was weathered gray, and the front steps had rotted through. Wild sumac grew up around the foundation. Clara parked the truck and got out. The air smelled like wet leaves and old wood. She walked the perimeter first. The back of the building had a door with a hasp lock, rusted open. She pulled the door and it swung in, scraping the floor. Inside was a single large room with a vaulted ceiling. The plaster had come down in chunks. The floorboards were warped and stained. There was a teacher's desk overturned in the corner, and a blackboard still mounted to the wall, cracked down the middle. She walked to the center of the room and stood still. She could hear birds in the rafters. Water dripped somewhere behind the walls. The light coming through the empty windows was soft and gray, and it made everything look farmed out and used up. She set her duffel bag on the floor. There was a hand pump in the corner near the back door. She tried it. Nothing. She went outside and found a coffee can under the steps and filled it from a puddle. She primed the pump and worked the handle. It coughed, sputtered, then ran clean. She filled the can again and drank. She made a peanut butter sandwich from a jar she kept in the truck and ate it standing at the broken window. She didn't have a sleeping bag, so she spread her jacket on the floor near the desk and lay down on it. She used the duffel as a pillow. She stared up at the ceiling beams. They were hand-hewn, not milled. Someone had shaped them with an adze. The joints were mortise and tenon, pegged with oak dowels. She could see the marks where the wood had been planed. It was well built. That surprised her. She closed her eyes. In the middle of the night, she woke to a sound she couldn't place. She sat up. The room was dark except for a wedge of moonlight from the window. She stayed still and listened. Nothing. She lay back down, but she didn't sleep. She kept thinking about the paralegal's face when she'd tapped her earlobe. The way Janet had said maybe like she didn't believe it herself. At dawn, Clara got up and walked the room again. This time she paid attention. The floorboards near the northwest corner didn't match the rest. They were the same width, the same species, but the nails were different. Newer. The heads were clean, and the cuts were square, not forged. She knelt and ran her hand over the seam. She went out to the truck and dug through the toolbox in the bed. She found a flat pry bar with paint flecked on the handle and a claw hammer with a cracked grip. She brought them inside. She worked the pry bar under the first board. It resisted, then popped with a squeal. She pulled the nails and lifted the board free. Underneath was a second layer of subflooring, also newer. She pried that up too. Underneath was a wooden hatch. It was built flush into the floor joists, about 2 feet square, with a rope pull set into a drilled hole. The wood was clean pine, unweathered. It had been built in the last 10 years, maybe 5. Clara pulled the rope. The hatch lifted on iron hinges that had been oiled. It made no sound. Below was a cellar. She couldn't see the bottom. She went back to the truck and found a flashlight in the glove box. The batteries were weak, but it worked. She shone it down into the hatch. There were stone steps, 12 of them, leading to a packed dirt floor. The walls were dry stacked stone, and the ceiling was braced with railroad ties. In the center of the space was a wooden trunk, a metal filing cabinet, and a card table with a lantern on it. Clara climbed down. The air was cool and still. It smelled like clay and old paper. She set the flashlight on the card table and opened the trunk. Inside were 3 layers. The top layer was a quilt, folded into quarters. She lifted it out. Underneath were letters, bundled in stacks with twine, maybe 60 or 70 in all. Underneath the letters was a cigar box, a ring of brass keys, and a leather journal with the clasp broken. Clara sat on the dirt floor and opened the first letter. The handwriting was careful and slanted. Blue ink on lined paper. It was addressed to her. Clara, if you're reading this, then you found the hatch. I didn't make it easy, but I didn't make it impossible either. I wanted you to have to work for it, not because I thought you didn't deserve it, but because I needed to know you'd stay long enough to look. My name is Eleanor Macklin. I don't know if you remember me. You were 7 the last time I saw you. You were wearing a yellow shirt with a duck on it. You asked me if I had any horses. I didn't, but I told you I'd get one someday. I never did. Your mother and I stopped speaking after that summer. It wasn't your fault. It was mine. And it was hers. And it was 100 small things that don't matter anymore. I wanted to reach out. I wrote you letters every year on your birthday. I never sent them. There in the trunk. I didn't think she'd let you read them, and I didn't want to make things harder for you than they already were. I bought this schoolhouse in 1991. It cost me $400 at a tax sale. Nobody wanted it. The roof was half gone and the county was going to bulldoze it. I spent 2 years fixing it up, just enough to keep it standing. I didn't have much money, but I had time. I taught here once, a long time ago. I was 23. It was my first job. I only lasted 2 years before they consolidated the school district and shut it down. But I loved this place. I thought if I could buy it back, I could leave it to you. I thought maybe you'd want a place that nobody could take from you. I never married. I never had children. You're the only family I have. I'm writing this in 2003. I don't know when you'll find it. Maybe next year, maybe 20 years from now. Maybe never. But if you do, I want you to know I didn't forget about you. I thought about you every single day. There's more down here than letters. Look in the filing cabinet. I left you something that matters. With love, Eleanor. Clara read the letter twice. Then she folded it and set it on the floor beside her. She didn't cry. She sat very still and stared at the stone wall. She picked up the flashlight and opened the filing cabinet. Inside were file folders labeled by year, 1991 through 2006. She pulled the one marked 2006 and opened it. Inside was a deed, a warranty deed, recorded and notarized, transferring the schoolhouse from Eleanor Macklin to Clara Whitfield. The date was June 14th, 2006. Clara would have been 16. There was a second document clipped to it, a will, handwritten on legal paper, signed and witnessed. It named Clara as sole heir. It listed the schoolhouse, a savings account at First National Bank in Millerton, and the contents of the cellar. There was a sticky note attached to the will in different handwriting. It said, "Never filed. Contact me when you're ready. JT." Clara turned the note over. There was a phone number. She set the folder down and pulled the rest of them. Every year had the same kinds of documents: receipts for materials, invoices from contractors, photographs of the building in progress, a roof in 1995, new windows in 1998, electrical in 2001. All of it paid in cash, all of it recorded. In the back of the last folder was a photograph. It was Eleanor standing in front of the schoolhouse. She was older than Clara remembered, maybe 60, with short gray hair and a denim shirt. She was smiling. Behind her, the building looked clean and square. The bell tower was painted. The steps were solid. Clara held the photograph under the flashlight. She stared at Eleanor's face. She didn't remember the smile, but she remembered the shirt. She put the photograph back and closed the cabinet. She climbed the stone steps and sat on the floor of the schoolhouse with the letter in her hand. The sun was coming through the broken windows now, low and gold, and the birds were back in the rafters. She pressed the letter flat against her chest and closed her eyes. She sat there until the light changed. The next morning, Clara woke on the schoolhouse floor with the letter still folded in her jacket pocket. Her back hurt. The sun was already up, and the room was warm. She stood and stretched, then walked outside to the pump and washed her face. The water was so cold it made her jaw ache. She had $12 left. She needed food, and she needed to call the number on the sticky note. She drove into Harlan Springs just after 8. The town looked smaller in daylight. There was a post office, a diner, a hardware store, and a single-pump gas station that didn't look open. She parked in front of the diner. The sign above the door said, "Regina's" in hand-painted letters. The paint was faded but clean. Clara went inside. There were 6 tables and a counter with 5 stools. A woman in her mid-60s stood behind the counter, pouring coffee into a white mug. She had steel gray hair pulled back in a bun and bifocals on a cord around her neck. She wore a white apron over a flannel shirt. She looked up when Clara walked in, but didn't say anything. Clara sat at the counter. The woman set the coffee pot back on the burner and wiped her hands on the apron. "You're the one who bought the schoolhouse," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Clara said. The woman nodded. She poured a second mug of coffee and set it in front of Clara. "You eat yet?" "No." "You want eggs?" Clara hesitated. "I don't have much cash." The woman waved a hand. "I didn't ask if you had cash, I asked if you wanted eggs." Clara looked at her. The woman's face was flat and unreadable, but her eyes were steady. "Yes," Clara said. "Thank you." The woman cracked 3 eggs onto the griddle and dropped 2 slices of bread in the toaster. She didn't ask how Clara wanted them. She worked in silence, her hands quick and sure. When the eggs were done, she slid the plate across the counter with a fork wrapped in a paper napkin. Clara ate slowly. The eggs were cooked in butter, and the toast was golden. She hadn't realized how hungry she was. The woman refilled her coffee without asking. "My name's Regina," she said. "I knew your aunt." Clara set her fork down. "You knew Eleanor?" 30 years, Regina said. "She ate here twice a week when she was working on that building. She'd sit right where you're sitting and drink 4 cups of coffee and never say more than 10 words. She paused. But she always tipped. Clara looked down at her plate. "When did she die?" 2006, Regina said. "July, heart attack. She was in the garden behind the schoolhouse. Mail carrier found her the next day." Clara felt something tighten in her chest. She didn't say anything. Regina folded her arms. "You look like her." "I don't remember her very well." "She remembered you," Regina said. "She talked about you more than she talked about anything else. She said you were smart, said you asked good questions." Clara looked up. "Did she ever say why she didn't reach out?" Regina shook her head. "No, but I got the sense someone told her she couldn't." Clara thought about her mother, about the silence that had come down after that last summer. She didn't know what had happened. Her mother had died 4 years ago, and she'd never explained. Regina reached under the counter and pulled out a metal toolbox. She set it on the counter and opened it. Inside were a hammer, a tape measure, a utility knife, a torpedo level, and a cordless drill with 2 batteries. "Eleanor left this here," Regina said. "Told me if anyone ever came asking about the schoolhouse, I should give it to them." She pushed the toolbox across the counter. "I'm guessing that's you." Clara stared at the tools. They were clean and well kept. The drill was a DeWalt, older model, but it looked barely used. "I can't take this," Clara said. "You're not taking it," Regina said. "It's already yours. She left it here in 2005. I've been keeping it in the back for 17 years. Clara reached out and touched the handle of the hammer. The grip was worn smooth. "There's one more thing," Regina said. She pulled a business card from her apron pocket and set it on the counter. "Eleanor gave me this the last time I saw her. She said if you ever showed up, I should make sure you called him." Clara picked up the card. It was plain white with black text. James Holloway, Eskib. Wills, trusts, property law. A phone number, an address in a town Clara didn't recognize. "Who is he?" Clara asked. "Lawyer," Regina said. "Not from around here. Eleanor drove 2 hours to see him every time she updated her will. She didn't trust anyone local." Clara turned the card over. On the back, in blue ink, someone had written, "JT. Call when she comes." "Did she know I'd come?" Clara asked. Regina shrugged. She hoped. Clara folded the card and put it in her pocket next to Eleanor's letter. She looked at the toolbox, then at Regina. "How much do I owe you?" she asked. Regina shook her head. "Nothing. I can pay you when I said nothing." Regina's voice was firm but not unkind. "Eleanor paid me in advance, 20 years in advance. So you eat and you take the tools, and when you're on your feet you do the same for somebody else." Clara nodded. She didn't trust herself to say anything. She carried the toolbox out to the truck and set it in the bed. Then she walked to the gas station. It was open. She bought a prepaid calling card for $5 and used the payphone bolted to the outside wall. She dialed the number on the business card. A man answered on the second ring. "James Holloway." "My name is Clara Whitfield," she said. "I think Eleanor Macklin left something with you." There was a pause. Then the man's voice came back, quieter. "She did. I've been waiting for you to call." When Clara got back to the schoolhouse, she went straight to the cellar. She brought the flashlight and the cordless drill. She set the drill on the card table and shone the light across the stone walls. James Holloway had told her to look for a seam in the back wall. He said Eleanor had built a second chamber behind the first. He said she'd done the work herself, dry stacking the stone and sealing it with mortar she'd mixed by hand. He said she'd finished it in 2004, 2 years before she died. "She didn't tell me what was in it," he'd said. "She just told me to make sure you found it." Clara ran her hand along the back wall. The stones were fitted tight, but halfway across she felt a gap. She pressed, and a section of the wall moved inward, just slightly. She pushed harder. It swung open on a pivot hinge. Behind it was a room. It was small, maybe 8 feet by 10, with a ceiling just tall enough to stand in. The walls were whitewashed. There was a work lamp hanging from a hook, wired to a battery pack on the floor. Clara switched it on. The room was full. Against the left wall were 3 pieces of furniture, each covered with a canvas tarp. Clara pulled the first tarp back. It was a rocking chair. Oak, with curved armrests and spindle supports. The joints were dovetailed, and the finish was hand-rubbed. There was a brass plate screwed to the back of the headrest. It said, "For Clara, age 10. Clara pulled the second tarp. A writing desk. Cherry wood, with 3 drawers and brass pulls. The plate on the desk said, "For Clara, age 16. The third piece was a bookshelf. Walnut, floor to ceiling, with adjustable shelves and a crown molding top. The plate said, "For Clara, age 21. Clara stood in the center of the room and turned slowly. She touched the edge of the desk. The wood was smooth and cool under her fingers. On the right wall were shelves, built into the stone. On the shelves were boxes, labeled by year. She opened the first one. Inside were savings bonds. Series EE, issued in her name. $50 each, issued every month. The box was labeled 1991, 1995. She counted them. 60 bonds. She opened the next box. 1996, 2000, another 60. There were 6 boxes in all. 360 bonds, issued over 30 years. She did the math in her head. $18,000 in face value. maybe double that if they'd matured. Beside the boxes was a wooden crate. Inside were letters still in their envelopes. Each one was addressed to Clara Whitfield, but none of them had been mailed. They were organized by year, bundled with twine. She counted 22 bundles. At the back of the room was a small table. On it was a mason jar with a folded piece of paper inside. Clara unscrewed the lid and pulled the paper out. It was a letter, longer than the first. The handwriting was the same, but shakier. She sat on the floor and unfolded it. Clara, I'm writing this on June 11th, 2006. I'm 74 years old, and my hands don't work the way they used to. So forgive the mess. If you found this room, then you found everything I wanted to give you. The furniture, the bonds, the letters. I built every piece of furniture in this room with my own hands. I started the year you were born. I didn't know if I'd ever get to give them to you, but I built them anyway. I wanted you to have things that were made for you. Things that would last. I need to tell you why I hid all of this. When your mother and I stopped speaking, it wasn't because I wanted to. She was angry with me, and she had a right to be. Your father left when you were 3. You probably don't remember him. He was a cruel man, and your mother did everything she could to keep you safe from him. But I helped him once. I gave him money when he asked for it. I didn't know what he'd do with it. He used it to hire a lawyer to fight your mother for custody. He lost, but it cost her everything she had. She didn't forgive me. I don't blame her. I tried to reach out after he disappeared for good, but she wouldn't take my calls. I wrote letters. She sent them back unopened. I thought about showing up, but I was afraid I'd make things worse. So I stayed away, but I didn't stop caring. I bought this place because I wanted you to have something nobody could take from you. I spent 20 years fixing it up, a little at a time. I worked in secret because I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't trust the system. I didn't trust the lawyers or the courts or any of it. I'd seen what they could do. When I wrote my will, I hired a lawyer 2 counties over, a man named James Holloway. He's a good man. I told him to keep the will in his safe and not to file it with the county. I told him to wait until you came looking. I did that because of Raymond Goss. Raymond was my first lawyer. I hired him in 1987 to help me buy this building. He seemed competent, professional. I didn't know he was your father's cousin. I didn't find out until 2001, when I went to update my will, and he told me he wouldn't allow me to leave anything to you. He said your father had asked him to make sure you never inherited from our side of the family. He said if I tried, he'd tie it up in probate for years. He said he'd challenge my competency. He said he'd make sure you spent every dollar you had fighting for it, and in the end, you'd lose anyway. I fired him the next day. I moved everything to James Holloway. I didn't tell anyone. I paid James in cash and made him promise not to file anything until after I was gone. I wanted to make sure Raymond couldn't stop it. I also stopped going to doctors. I know that sounds foolish, but I was afraid Raymond would use medical records to prove I wasn't of sound mind. I wanted the will to be ironclad. So I lived quietly, and I worked on this place, and I wrote you letters I never sent. I wish I'd been braver. I wish I'd fought harder to see you. But I was afraid of making your life harder than it already was. Your mother was struggling. I didn't want to add to that. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I built. I built you furniture for every milestone I missed. I bought you bonds for every birthday I wasn't there for. I wrote you letters so you'd know I didn't forget. I don't know what your life has been like. I don't know if you're happy, or if you're angry, or if you even remember me. But I know this. You deserved better than what you got. You deserved a family that stayed. You deserved someone who showed up. I couldn't be that person, but I'm trying to show up now, the only way I know how. This place is yours. The furniture is yours. The money is yours. The letters are yours. All of it. I've made sure the deed is clear and the title is clean. James has the paperwork. He'll help you file it. If you want to sell it, you can. If you want to live here, you can. If you want to tear it all down and walk away, I'll understand, but I hope you stay. I hope you stay because this place was built with love. Every board, every nail, every stone. I built it for you, and I built it to last. I loved you when you were born. I loved you when I couldn't see you. I loved you every single day, even the ones when I didn't know if you were thinking of me. I love you still. Eleanor Clara read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and set it on the table. She sat with her back against the stone wall and her knees pulled up to her chest. The work lamp cast a circle of light on the floor, and outside the circle everything was shadow. She thought about her mother, about the silences, about the nights her mother had worked double shifts and come home too tired to talk, about the eviction notices, the shut-off warnings, the nights they'd eaten cereal for dinner because there was nothing else. She thought about her father, who she barely remembered. A voice, a slammed door, the sound of her mother crying in the next room. She thought about Eleanor building furniture in this room, alone. She pressed her palms against her eyes and sat very still. After a long time, she stood. She picked up the letter and carried it upstairs. She set it on the overturned desk beside the first letter. Then she walked outside and sat on the stone wall and watched the light change. She fell asleep there. When she woke, it was almost evening. The sky was the color of rust. A black sedan was parked beside her truck. A man was standing near the front steps of the schoolhouse, looking up at the bell tower. He wore a charcoal suit and polished shoes. He had a leather briefcase in one hand. When he saw Clara, he smiled. "Miss Whitfield?" he said. Clara stood. "Who are you?" The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He walked over and handed it to her. "Raymond Goss, Esquibros, Estate Planning and Probate." Clara looked at the card, then at him. He was in his late 60s, with silver hair and rimless glasses. He had the kind of face that looked expensive. "I represent the estate of Eleanor Macklin," he said. "The estate was settled," Clara said. "It was," Raymond said, "but certain irregularities have come to my attention. I understand you've taken possession of this property." "I bought it," Clara said, "from the county. It was a tax sale." Raymond nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm aware. Unfortunately, the sale may not have been legitimate. The property was listed as part of Miss Macklin's estate. It should have been distributed according to her will, not sold for back taxes." "Then why didn't you list it?" Clara asked. Raymond smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. There was some confusion about the condition of the structure. "I was under the impression it had been condemned. When I learned it was still standing, I began looking into the matter." And I believe the deed you received from the county is invalid," Raymond said. "The property rightfully belongs to the estate, which means it should be liquidated and the proceeds distributed according to the will." "I'm the only heir," Clara said. "That's unclear," Raymond said. "There are other potential claimants. Your father, for one." Clara stared at him. "My father's been gone for 15 years. "Nevertheless," Raymond said, "until his status is legally resolved, the estate remains open. I'm prepared to file a motion to void the tax sale and reclaim the property on behalf of the estate. However, I'd prefer to settle this amicably." He set the briefcase on the ground and opened it. He pulled out a single sheet of paper and handed it to Clara. "I'm authorized to offer you $1,500 for a quitclaim deed. You sign over any interest you have in the property, and we close the estate. You walk away with cash in hand. No legal fees, no complications." Clara looked at the paper. It was a contract, already filled out. Her name was spelled correctly. "If you don't accept," Raymond said, "I'll file the motion on Monday. The hearing will take months, maybe a year. You'll need a lawyer. It'll cost you more than $1,500 just to fight it, and there's no guarantee you'll win." He smiled again. "This way is simpler." Clara handed the paper back to him. "No." Raymond's smile faded. "Miss Whitfield, I understand you're upset, but you need to be realistic. You bought a collapsed building for $9. You're not losing anything of value." "I said no." Raymond folded the paper and put it back in the briefcase. He closed it with a sharp click. "I'll file the motion on Monday," he said. "You'll be served within the week. I suggest you find a lawyer." He picked up the briefcase and walked back to the sedan. He got in, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. Clara stood in the driveway and watched the dust settle. She sat down on the stone wall and put her head in her hands. On Wednesday morning, a sheriff's deputy knocked on the door of the schoolhouse. Clara was in the cellar, sorting through the bundled letters. She heard boots on the front steps and climbed up through the hatch. The deputy was young, maybe 25, with a trimmed mustache and a clipboard. He handed her a manila envelope sealed with tape. "Court papers," he said. "You've been served." Clara signed his clipboard and watched him drive away. Then she opened the envelope. Motion due. Set aside tax sale and quiet title. Raymond Gost's name at the top. A hearing date circled in red ink. May 15th. 11 days away. She read the filing twice. Raymond claimed Eleanor had been mentally incompetent when she stopped paying property taxes. He claimed the county had failed to properly notify the estate before the sale. He claimed Clara had purchased the property, knowing it belonged to someone else. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Settlement offer expires Friday. Clara folded the papers and put them back in the envelope. She walked outside and sat on the tailgate of her truck. She counted her money. $7. She thought about the $1,500 Raymond had offered. It would get her a security deposit somewhere. First month's rent. Gas to drive somewhere new and start over. She thought about Eleanor, building furniture in the dark. She thought about her mother, working double shifts and never complaining. She started the truck. Regina was wiping down the counter when Clara walked into the diner. There were no other customers. Regina looked up and saw Clara's face. "What happened?" she said. Clara set the court papers on the counter. Regina put on her bifocals and read them. When she finished, she folded them and handed them back. "Raymond Goss," Regina said. "That bastard." "You know him?" "Everybody knows him," Regina said. "He's been circling that property for 20 years. Soon as Eleanor died, he started sniffing around, asking questions. Mary Stanek told him to pound sand, but he kept coming back. The hearing's in 11 days. Regina poured Clara a cup of coffee. "You got a lawyer?" "I've got $7. Regina nodded. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the back of the diner. Clara heard her open a cash register. She came back with a coffee can and set it on the counter. It was half full of bills and change. "Eleanor's fund," Regina said. "She left money for coffee and pie for anyone who needed it. There's $230 in there. It's yours if you need it." Clara stared at the can. "I can't take that." "You're not taking it," Regina said. "You're using it. There's a difference." Clara looked at the court papers, then at Regina. "It won't be enough. Even if I find a lawyer, Raymond's been planning this for years. He knows things about Eleanor I don't know. About my father. About why my mother cut ties." Regina leaned against the counter. "You thinking about taking his offer?" "I don't know." "Can I tell you something about your aunt?" Regina asked. Clara nodded. "She came here every Tuesday for 16 years, Regina said. "Always ordered the same thing. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, coffee black. She'd sit at that table by the window and read a book while she ate. Never bothered anyone, never asked for anything." Regina paused and looked out the window toward the schoolhouse. "But every winter, when the Hendersons couldn't pay their heating bill, An anonymous money order would show up at the propane company. Every spring, when the church needed a new roof, someone would leave an envelope of cash in the collection box. When Tommy Marsh broke his leg and couldn't work construction, someone paid his grocery bill for 3 months. Regina turned back to Clara. Nobody talked about it, but we all knew. Eleanor? Eleanor, Regina said. She spent 30 years helping people in this town, and she never let anyone thank her. She never took credit. She just did what needed doing. Clara wrapped her hands around the coffee cup. It was warm. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because that's what she was building down there," Regina said. "Not just a place for you to live. A place for you to keep doing what she did. She was building you a way to help people." The bell over the diner door chimed. Clara turned to see a girl, maybe 18, with a canvas backpack and mud on her boots. She had dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and hollow cheeks. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to come in. Regina looked at the girl, then at Clara. "You hungry, honey?" The girl nodded but didn't move. Regina walked around the counter and took the girl's backpack. "Sit anywhere you like," she said. "I'll get you some eggs." The girl sat 2 tables away from Clara. She kept her jacket on and her hands in her lap. Regina brought her coffee without asking and started cooking. Clara watched the girl. She looked the way Clara had felt 3 weeks ago. Lost. Tired. Running from something. When Regina set the plate down, the girl stared at it like she couldn't believe it was real. "How much?" the girl asked. "Nothing," Regina said. "I don't take charity." "It's not charity," Regina said. "It's breakfast. Eat it before it gets cold." The girl ate slowly, carefully, like she was afraid someone would take the plate away. Clara remembered that feeling. When the girl finished, she stood up and pulled a crumpled $5 bill from her pocket. Regina waved it away. "Keep it," Regina said. "You'll need it for gas." The girl hesitated. "Is there any work around here?" "What kind of work?" "Anything," the girl said. "I can clean. I can cook. I'm good with my hands." Regina looked at Clara. Clara looked back. Something passed between them. "There might be," Clara said. "What's your name?" "Anna," the girl said. "I'm Clara. I've got a building that needs fixing up. It's not much, but there's a place to sleep and 3 meals a day if you're interested." Anna's eyes widened. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Clara said. "Just work. Honest work." Anna looked from Clara to Regina, then back to Clara. "Why would you help me?" Clara thought about Eleanor's letter, about the furniture built in the dark, about 20 years of anonymous kindness. "Because someone helped me," she said. Anna nodded slowly. "Okay." Clara paid for their breakfast with money from Eleanor's coffee can. Then she and Anna drove back to the schoolhouse. Clara showed her the upstairs loft, where the roof was sound and the floor was solid. She gave Anna a sleeping bag from the truck and a change of clothes from her duffel. Then they went to work. Over the next 4 days, people started showing up. First was Dale Hoffman, a retired electrician who pulled into the driveway Thursday morning in a Ford pickup with a ladder rack. He was in his 70s with white whiskers and bifocals held together with electrical tape. He got out of the truck and walked straight to Clara. "Heard you might need some wiring done," he said. Clara looked around. She hadn't told anyone about needing electrical work. "Regina mentioned it," Dale said. "I brought my tools." He spent the day running new Romex through the walls and installing a breaker panel in the cellar. When Clara asked what she owed him, he shook his head. "Eleanor paid me in advance," he said, 20 years ago. I owed her a favor." Friday morning brought Lucy Chen, a plumber who drove up in a van with PVC pipe strapped to the roof. She was quiet, efficient, middle-aged with calloused hands. She replaced the old galvanized supply lines with copper and installed a new hot water heater. She worked without talking, but when Anna brought her a sandwich at lunch, Lucy showed her how to sweat a joint with a torch. Saturday brought 3 more people: a roofer who replaced the missing shingles, a woman from the garden center who planted flowers around the foundation, an old man who brought firewood and stacked it against the back wall without saying a word. None of them would take payment. They all said the same thing. Eleanor had helped them once. They were returning the favor. By Sunday, the schoolhouse was starting to look like a building again instead of a ruin. The windows were clean, the floors were swept, and the pump in the corner ran clear water. Clara had moved her sleeping bag upstairs to the loft next to Anna's. They cooked simple meals on a camp stove and ate by lantern light. Anna worked without complaining. She had strong hands and good instincts. When Dale needed someone to feed wire through a conduit, she knew how to do it. When Lucy needed a fitting held in place, Anna was there. She didn't talk much about where she'd come from, but Clara didn't ask. Some stories took time to tell. Monday morning, Clara drove to the courthouse in Cumberland County. She'd called James Holloway, and he'd agreed to represent her for $100. It wasn't much, but it was what she could afford. The courtroom was small, with wood-paneled walls and fluorescent lights. Raymond Goss sat at a table near the front, wearing the same charcoal suit. He had a briefcase open and papers spread out in neat stacks. He looked confident. James Holloway was younger than Clara had expected, maybe 40, with a rumpled jacket and a coffee stain on his tie. He sat beside Clara and whispered that they had a chance, but it would depend on the judge. The judge was a woman named Sarah Kellerman with gray hair and steel-rimmed glasses. She looked at the papers in front of her, then at Raymond. "Mr. Goss," she said, "you're claiming the tax sale was invalid because the property was improperly assessed." "That's correct, Your Honor," Raymond said. He stood and straightened his tie. Miss Macklin was incompetent at the time she stopped paying taxes. She was suffering from dementia and was unable to manage her affairs. The property should have remained part of the estate. "Do you have medical records to support that claim?" Raymond hesitated. Miss Macklin avoided medical care in her final years, but witnesses can attest to her declining mental state. "What witnesses?" Raymond looked around the courtroom. It was empty except for Clara, James, and the court reporter. "I can provide affidavits," he said. Judge Kellerman made a note. "Mr. Holloway, what's your position?" James stood. "Your Honor, Miss Macklin was of sound mind when she transferred the property to Miss Whitfield. We have documentation showing she maintained the building, paid contractors, and managed her affairs competently until her death." "What documentation?" James opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of folders. Receipts, invoices, and photographs spanning 15 years, all showing Miss Macklin actively maintaining and improving the property. He handed the folders to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge. Judge Kellerman opened the first folder and studied the contents. "These are quite detailed," she said. "Miss Macklin was very thorough," James said. "She documented every repair, every improvement, every dollar spent." "This isn't the record of someone who was incompetent." Raymond cleared his throat. "Your Honor, if I may." The courtroom door opened. Regina walked in, followed by Dale Hoffman, Lucy Chen, and 6 other people Clara recognized from the schoolhouse. They filled the first 2 rows behind Clara's table. Judge Kellerman looked up. "Are these witnesses, Mr. Holloway?" "They may be, Your Honor." The judge motioned to Regina. "Ma'am, please approach the bench." Regina walked to the front of the courtroom. She wore a clean dress and her good shoes, but she looked like herself. Steady, unimpressed. "State your name for the record," the judge said. "Regina Walsh." "How did you know Eleanor Macklin?" "She ate at my diner twice a week for 16 years, Regina said. "Always ordered the same thing, always paid in cash, always tipped exactly 15%. "In your opinion, was Miss Macklin mentally competent?" Regina looked at Raymond, then back at the judge. She was the sharpest person I ever met. She could calculate a 15% tip in her head faster than most people could do it with a calculator. She read 3 books a week and remembered every word. She knew the name of every kid in this town and asked about them by name. Did she ever seem confused or disoriented? Never, Regina said. Right up until the day she died, she was clear as a bell. Judge Kellerman made another note. Mr. Goss, do you have any evidence to contradict this testimony? Raymond shuffled through his papers. Your Honor, I have reason to believe Miss Macklin was influenced by outside parties. Her decision to hide assets from the estate suggests. She didn't hide anything, Regina said. The judge looked at her. Excuse me? Regina turned to face Raymond. She didn't hide anything from you, Mr. Goss. She fired you. The courtroom went quiet. She fired you because you told her she couldn't leave anything to her niece. She fired you because you said you'd tie it up in court for years and make sure Clara never saw a dime. She fired you because you were working for somebody else, not for her. Raymond's face went red. Your Honor, this is hearsay. Is it? Regina asked. Because I was there. July 14th, 2001. Eleanor came into my diner after she met with you. She was shaking. She was so angry. She told me exactly what you said. She told me she was going to find a new lawyer, one who worked for her instead of against her. Judge Kellerman looked at Raymond. Mr. Goss, is this true? Raymond straightened his tie again. Your Honor, I may have advised Miss Macklin that her estate plan was complicated, but I was acting in her best interests. Whose best interests? Regina asked. Hers or her nephew's? The judge held up a hand. What nephew? Regina looked at Clara, then back at the judge. Clara's father, Carl Whitfield. He's Mr. Goss's cousin. He asked Mr. Goss to make sure Clara never inherited anything from Eleanor. Mr. Goss said yes. The courtroom erupted. Judge Kellerman banged her gavel. Order, she said. Mr. Goss, is this true? Raymond stood very still. His hands were shaking slightly. Your Honor, he said, I may have had personal knowledge of family dynamics that influenced my legal advice, but I acted within the bounds of professional ethics. No, the judge said, you didn't. She closed the folders and set them aside. Mr. Goss, you represented Miss Macklin while having a conflict of interest. You failed to disclose that conflict, and you apparently used your position to prevent your client from disposing of her property as she saw fit. She turned to James. Mr. Holloway, I'm dismissing Mr. Goss's motion. The tax sale stands. Miss Whitfield's ownership is confirmed. She banged the gavel once. This court is adjourned. Raymond packed his papers in silence. He didn't look at Clara as he left. Outside the courthouse, Regina hugged Clara on the steps. Dale Hoffman shook her hand. Lucy Chen nodded and walked away without saying anything, but she was smiling. What happens now? Anna asked. Clara looked back at the courthouse, then at the group of people who had driven an hour to support her. People Eleanor had helped. People who were now helping her. Now we finish what Eleanor started, Clara said. 2 weeks later, Clara stood in the doorway of the schoolhouse and watched Anna teach a 12-year-old boy named Marcus how to use a hand plane. Anna had turned out to be good with kids, patient and careful with the tools. She'd also turned out to be running from an abusive stepfather in Tennessee, but that was a story for another day. The schoolhouse was a workshop now. Clara had used Eleanor's savings bonds to buy tools, lumber, and supplies. She taught woodworking 3 afternoons a week. Anna handled the bookkeeping and helped with the classes. Regina brought sandwiches twice a week and refused payment. The furniture Eleanor had built was displayed along one wall: the rocking chair, the writing desk, the bookshelf. Clara had mounted brass plaques beside each one that read, Eleanor Macklin, 1932-2006. She built with love. James Holloway had helped her set up a nonprofit, the Eleanor Macklin Workshop for Community Arts. They taught woodworking to kids, furniture repair to adults, and basic home maintenance to anyone who needed it. Everything was free. Everything was funded by donations and grants. Clara heard footsteps on the front porch and looked up. A young man stood in the doorway, maybe 19, with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and dust on his boots. He had the look Clara recognized. Lost. Tired. Nowhere else to go. "We're closed," Anna said, looking up from the workbench. "Actually," Clara said, "we're not." She walked over to the young man. "You hungry?" He nodded. "Anna, can you make a sandwich?" Anna wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the small kitchen in the back corner. She brought back a peanut butter sandwich on a paper plate and a cup of coffee in a ceramic mug. The young man stared at the food. "How much?" he asked. "Nothing," Clara said. "I don't take charity." Clara smiled. "It's not charity. It's lunch. Eat it before it gets cold." The young man sat at the workbench and ate slowly. When he finished, he looked around the workshop, at the tools hanging on the walls, at the furniture Eleanor had built, at the kids learning to use a hand plane. "Is there any work around here?" he asked. Clara looked at Anna. Anna looked back. Something passed between them. "There might be," Clara said. "What's your name?" "David." "I'm Clara. This is Anna. We've got a workshop that needs help. It's not much, but there's a place to sleep and 3 meals a day if you're interested." David's eyes widened. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Clara said. "Just work. Honest work." That evening, after David had settled into the small room behind the kitchen and Anna had finished cleaning the workbenches, Clara climbed the stairs to the loft. She sat on the edge of her bed and pulled Eleanor's letters from the cardboard box beside her pillow. She'd been reading one a year on the date it was written. Tonight was July 15th, and she had the letter Eleanor had written on July 15th, 1998. Clara would have been 16. She unfolded it carefully. "Dear Clara," it began. "Today you turned 16. I hope someone gave you a car, or at least driving lessons. I remember being 16 and feeling like the whole world was waiting for me to come find it. I hope you feel that way too." Clara read the letter twice, then folded it and put it back in the box. She walked to the window and looked out at the town. The street lights were coming on. Regina's diner glowed warm in the distance. Smoke rose from the chimneys of houses where families were sitting down to dinner. She thought about Eleanor sitting in this same spot 20 years ago, writing letters to a niece she couldn't see, planning a workshop she might never build, buying savings bonds for a future she might not live to see. She thought about Anna, learning to be still after years of running, about David, sleeping in a real bed for the first time in months, about Marcus, who came to the workshop every day after school, because his mother worked late and he had nowhere else to go. Home isn't where you end up. It's where you stop running and decide to fix what's broken. Clara turned away from the window and walked downstairs. In the workshop, the tools hung clean and straight on their hooks. The workbenches were swept. The wood shavings had been collected in coffee cans and saved for kindling. She picked up the hand plane Anna had been teaching Marcus to use. The blade was sharp, the body was smooth, and the handle was worn from decades of use. It had belonged to Eleanor. Before that, it had belonged to someone else. It would outlast Clara and Anna and Marcus and David. It would keep making things smooth and straight and true long after all of them were gone. She set the plane back on the workbench and turned off the lights. Outside, the porch light cast a soft circle on the steps, and the sign Anna had painted hung steady in the still air. Eleanor Macklin Workshop, all welcome. Clara locked the door and walked across the yard to the truck. Tomorrow she'd drive to the county seat and pick up lumber for a new project. Tomorrow Anna would teach Marcus how to cut a mortise. Tomorrow David would sweep the workshop and learn to sharpen a chisel. But tonight, the work was done. The tools were clean. The building was sound. and that was enough. Clara didn't go straight to bed. She stood in the workshop for a long time after Anna had gone upstairs, after David had turned off his light, after the last sound in the building was the tick of cooling wood. She walked the room slowly, her hand trailing along the workbenches. The surface was smooth. Anna had sanded every one of them that afternoon. 3 coats of 120 grit, then 220, then a final wipe with linseed oil. The grain of the oak showed through, pale and even. She stopped at the rocking chair. Eleanor's rocking chair. The one with the brass plate that said, "For Clara, age 10. She sat in it. The spindles creaked under her weight, but they held. The rockers moved easy on the floor. She rocked once, twice, and the sound filled the room like a slow breath. She thought about what it meant to be 10. To be small and certain that the world was big and that you would grow into it. She thought about what it meant to be 22 and to have the world close in on you until it was the size of a duffel bag and $9 and a truck that burned oil. She rocked again. On the wall above the workbench, Anna had hung a framed photograph. It was the one Clara had found in the cellar, the one of Eleanor standing in front of the schoolhouse. The frame was simple pine, made by Marcus in his first woodworking class. He'd cut the miters wrong on 2 corners, but Clara had told him they were perfect, and he'd believed her. The photograph caught the last of the porch light. Eleanor's face was warm in it, her denim shirt, her short gray hair, the smile that Clara didn't remember but somehow knew. Clara reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the brass key from the cigar box. It was small, no bigger than her thumb, with a bow shaped like a clover. It didn't fit anything in the schoolhouse anymore. Eleanor had taken all the locks off years ago, but Clara carried it anyway. She put it on the windowsill beside the photograph, where the light from the porch lamp caught it and threw a small gold shape on the wall. She sat in the rocking chair and watched it. Outside, the night was quiet, not the quiet of emptiness, but the quiet of a place that had been loud for a long time and was finally resting. The crickets were in the grass along the foundation. A barn owl called from somewhere past the stone wall. The wind moved through the sumac and made a sound like paper turning. Clara closed her eyes. She thought about her mother. Not the last years, not the evictions and the shut-off notices and the cereal dinners. She thought about before. About a kitchen with yellow curtains and a table that wobbled because one leg was short. About her mother humming while she washed dishes. About being lifted onto the counter and handed a wooden spoon to stir something that smelled like cinnamon. She thought about her father. Not the slammed door, not the crying. She thought about the one good thing. A Saturday morning, her father sitting on the porch steps, whittling a stick into something, a horse maybe. He'd handed it to her and said, "There, now you've got one." She'd kept it for years. It was in a box somewhere, probably lost in one of the moves. She thought about Eleanor, whittling too, building furniture instead of toys, making things that would last. The rocking chair creaked. The brass key caught the light. Clara opened her eyes and stood. She walked to the back door and stepped outside. The air was cool and smelled like cut grass and wood smoke from Regina's chimney down the road. The sky was clear. She could see the Milky Way, faint but there, stretching from the bell tower to the tree line. She sat on the stone wall, the same wall she'd sat on the first night, with $43 and a broken zipper and nowhere to go. The stones were warm from the day's sun. She put her hands flat on them and felt the heat still holding. Tomorrow she would drive to the lumber yard. She would buy pine for a new workbench, maybe poplar for the kids' projects. She would teach Marcus how to cut a dovetail joint. She would show David how to sharpen a chisel with a diamond stone. She would make sandwiches for whoever walked through the door. But right now there was nothing to do. The building was sound. The tools were clean. The people inside were sleeping. She sat on the wall and looked at the schoolhouse. In the dark, it looked the way it had in Eleanor's photograph. Clean, square, waiting. She thought about the letter she'd read that morning, the one from 1998. I hope you feel like the whole world is waiting for you to come find it. She'd felt that way once, maybe. Before the evictions. Before the truck broke down on Route 9 and she'd sat on the hood for 2 hours waiting for a tow truck she couldn't afford. Before the food bank closed early and she'd driven home with a single can of beans. She didn't feel that way now. She felt something smaller and steadier, like a root. Like a stone in a wall that had been placed so long ago that the mortar had grown around it, and you couldn't tell where the stone ended and the wall began. She pulled Eleanor's first letter from her pocket, the short one, the one that said, "I built it for you, and I built it to last." She held it under the porch light and read the last line again. "I loved you every single day." She folded it and put it back. She stood on the wall and looked out at the road. It was dirt, packed hard by years of tires. It led to the highway, which led to the county seat, which led to everywhere else. But it also led here, to this wall, to this building, to this night. A car passed on the highway, far off, its headlights sweeping the tree line and gone. Then nothing. Then the owl again. Clara stepped down from the wall. She walked back inside and locked the door. She climbed the stairs to the loft and lay down on the mattress Anna had found at the thrift store in Harlan Springs. It was lumpy and smelled like dust, but it was dry, and it was hers. She put the brass key on the nightstand. She put the letter beside it. She turned off the lamp. In the dark, the schoolhouse settled. The beams creaked. The pipes ticked. The wind moved through the eaves and made a low sound, almost like breathing. Clara lay still and listened. She thought about the hand plane on the workbench, the blade sharp, the body smooth, the handle worn. It had been Eleanor's before it was anyone's. It would be someone else's after Clara. It would keep planning wood, shaving curls thin as paper, making rough surfaces smooth and true. It didn't know who held it. It just did what it was made to do. She thought about that, about being made for something, about building furniture for birthdays you wouldn't be there for, about buying bonds for years you couldn't see, about writing letters you couldn't send, about loving someone every single day and never saying it. The wind moved, the beams creaked, the schoolhouse held. Clara closed her eyes. She slept. In the morning, the light came through the loft window and lay across the floor in a long gold rectangle. The brass key sat in it, bright and still. The letter was beside it, folded neat, the creases soft from being handled. Downstairs, Anna was already up. Clara could hear the camp stove clicking, the kettle whistling, the sound of a knife cutting bread. David's boots were by the back door, placed neatly, toes pointing out. Marcus's backpack was on the hook by the entrance, stuffed and zipped. Clara lay in the light and listened to the sounds of people starting a day. The kettle. The knife. A chair scraping the floor. Someone humming low and tuneless, the way people hum when they don't know anyone is listening. She got up. She put the key in her pocket. She folded the letter and put it in the box with the others. She walked downstairs. Anna looked up from the stove. "Coffee's ready." "Thanks." David came in from the back, wiping his hands on a rag. "I swept the workshop, and I found a crack in the foundation on the east side. Should I mix some mortar?" "After breakfast," Clara said. Marcus came through the door with his backpack and a grin. "Can we do the dovetails today? I practiced on a scrap piece. Look." He pulled a block of pine from his bag. The joint was rough, but it fit. Not tight, not loose. Just enough. Clara took the block and turned it in her hand. The wood was light and warm. The cut was uneven, but the intention was there. He'd tried. He'd come back. "It's good," she said. "We'll make it tighter today." Marcus beamed. Clara poured her coffee. She sat at the workbench, the same bench Eleanor had sat at when she built the desk that now stood against the wall with its brass plate. She drank the coffee black, the way Eleanor had. She looked at the room, at the tools, at the people, at the light coming through the windows, clean and gold, falling on sawdust and wood shavings and the small bright shape of a brass key on the windowsill. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The building held. The people stayed. The work was there, waiting, the way it always had been. Outside, the bell tower caught the sun and threw a long shadow across the yard. The flowers Regina had planted were opening. The stone wall was solid. The road was quiet. And somewhere in a room full of letters and furniture and savings bonds, a woman who had loved every single day sat in a rocking chair and watched the light change, and knew that it was enough. It was always enough.